Today's video is going to be about a Chinese stock that I've been following for a while, and I've noticed that Alex Haak with the Twitter handle Backpack is really skillful and knows a lot about JOYY. It's a very complex and hard to understand business, I think, and Alex has some really great insights that's going to make it easier for us to get to what JOYY really is. So welcome, Alex.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate the kind words.
It's wonderful to have you here. We've really been preparing this for a long time, and now it's finally happening. That's
it'll be fun.
So great. Yeah, exactly. So could you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so first of all, I'm like a big fan of your like long format videos, especially the ones on gravity and C. I think they're really helpful, like outlining the context of a company. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. So yeah, I'm Alex Haak, as you said. I'm 25 years old. So I run my own concentrated, mostly long global portfolio. So in evaluating a stock, I look for a few things. So the first would be like high organic growth. That's obviously like a result of either a company taking share consistently or the pie growing, which is often a result of like some big trends. Then second, I'm looking for like high steady state margins. So a good example here could be the stock we are discussing today, which is JOYY. So a mature live streaming business has like really high steady state margin. So that's something I would look for. The third, I would be looking for like an attractive valuation. So obviously it depends. It's all in context, right? So I would not mind like paying like 40 times earnings today if I know that like the company will continue to grow and have like a different margin profile at maturity. Then fourth, I'm also looking for uh, basically like a masked margin or growth profile. So basically, if the underlying business is somewhat masked by either like an underperforming segment or for some other reason, like an accounting reason, we really enjoy those setups. And then I guess I'm looking for things that most investors are looking for, right? So like high insider ownership, high return on invested capital, and then a direction of return on invested capital. And then basically also things like the direction of the competition, the direction of a company's competitive advantage, like whether it's improving or not. Because often the current situation is priced in, right? So if you look at the direction of a metric or of a business, it's often better. And then last, yeah, especially for the short-term trades, I look for like a clear catalyst, right? So it could be anything from earnings to some other possible catalyst for the stock to perhaps like re-rate.
Yeah, so that sounds a lot like how I experience you when I watch what you put out on Twitter, Alex. I get the impression that you're. Do you have an economic education, or could you share something about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I have an economic background. So I've done a bachelor in economics, and then currently I'm doing a master in finance. So there's where that comes from.
Great. So how do you find the stocks that you're taking into your portfolio? What's the process there?
Oh yeah, so often it's basically a mix of just being very curious, in like reading Twitter, reading the news, following the companies I'm already following, and I'm also interested in like a few teams. So for example, I'm interested in like sports betting, esports, gaming. So basically, when I'm exploring like those industries, I just like find stocks and then I follow them for a while. Um, yeah, because I don't really think you can screen for most stocks. Because obviously, like if I can screen for it, anyone can screen for it. So then most of that should be priced in. Um,
Yeah, so you kind of find your edge in understanding some businesses where you understand the 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 what do you call it, the branch, what
Yeah, no, that's a good way to describe it,
right.
I think. Yeah, so I think I have like somewhat of an edge in like stuff like live streaming and esports and gaming because I just think that I really understand those.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then you
so that's why.
definitely have an edge in looking into the economics of a company.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because
Cool.
often they're like quite complicated. Like especially today, we are discussing YY, right? And the company is pretty complicated, and yeah.
Yeah. Extremely. Yeah. Great. So for how long have you invested?
Yeah, so I've been investing, I think, for like 5 years, but I started like, yeah, really bad. So my first stock went from like 14 to 3 or something, because like I had like one like finance class or something, and I just was like, fuck it, I'm starting to invest, you know. And I just like bought like a really low PE stock because I figured that, yeah, it's already cheap, so it couldn't go cheaper, right? It could only go up from here. But yeah, the opposite was obviously true. So yeah, it went from 14 to 3. It was like an insurance company. Um, so I guess I learned pretty early on that cheap stocks can get much cheaper, and that cheap stocks are often cheap for a reason. So I tried to mostly stay away from those.
Yeah, and I guess that's where it's really important to understand the business
Right.
and the business case, not just the economics. So you need both sides of it, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. Yeah, like I had no idea like what that insurance company did or how earnings were like, what were the key drivers of earnings and stuff. So I just like no idea, right, at the first stock.
Yeah, I think there are two really good examples in games right now. I think Rovio and the Swedish G5 Entertainment are really good examples of
Mm,
value traps where they
right.
seem very cheap, but actually they're understanding the mobile games business. They've peaked and they're not really making games that can compete.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think games are often like very misunderstood as well. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but yeah, like sometimes people like view games like being like a one-off. But often like game franchise are like pretty like have like a long span. They like so sometimes go on for like 10 years, right? Like the Call of Duties, the Overwatches, the
League of
whatever.
Legends. Yeah.
Yeah, they are just really like stable businesses and not like a one-off or like one-time charm.
Yeah, so if you look at games and just say games are like this, they are going to be one-off, then you really miss some opportunities. And if you think all games are just growing, you're really going to end up in some
Yeah,
value traps.
yeah, exactly. The context is so important here. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think in your video on graffiti, you like yeah did like a great job.
thanks.
Just
That was Papagino,
right.
really. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was
another
great.
Twitter guy. Yeah. Before we start, I just want to say that you need to remember that this is for informational purposes only. You should not regard this as investing advice. Neither Alex or I are equipped to be financial advisors, so you should do your own due diligence and make your own investment decisions. So that's it, Alex. Why don't you start telling us about YY?
Okay, so I'll be referring to YY as YY because they recently changed their name to JOYY, but in my head it's still like oh YY. So they recently changed it basically to reflect their global ambitions because about 75% of their users are now coming from outside China. And YY is the name of their main Chinese live streaming platform. So basically, they're trying to change the perception from being a Chinese platform with some other assets to like a global group. So the name change makes sense to me. So I view it as like the leader in live streaming globally. The past few years also went into short video and some other stuff, but I still view it as like mainly a live streaming company. So it basically has like three parts to it. So the core business is called YY Live. That's basically where the name comes from. It's like a core non-gaming live streaming platform. Then you have Huya, which is their game live streaming arm, which they spun off like in 2018, I think. They still own about 40% economic interest and 52% voting power. And then last, they have an overseas arm, which is called BIGO. They acquired it at a 2.1 billion valuation last year, but they previously already owned a stake. So yeah, just some common, I guess, like characteristics of the company or some financials. The current market cap's about like 4.4 billion, I think. It's probably lower today, but yeah, 4.4 billion. The enterprise value is like 2.3 billion or something. They have 4.5 billion in sales this year. They grow about 30% organically. They have pretty high margins, especially on the core business side. Yeah, so my investment thesis on YY is based on like a few factors. So if we go back about like on the things that I was looking for in a company, I guess we can start there. So first I was looking for high organic growth. That's definitely the case here. So YY is growing like 30% organically, has been doing so for a while. It grew like between 30 and 40% the past few years. So definitely some high organic growth. And also has a pretty high runway for organic growth, especially in his game live streaming arm and his overseas arm. But we'll discuss the in details later. Then yeah, so high steady state margins is also definitely the case here. YY's core business, BIGO-live, which is like a mature live streaming company, live streaming business, they run at like 23% net margins for the past 8 quarters. So yeah, really high margins there. Yeah, then attractive valuation. So that's basically the case on every metric you can think of, even if it's if it's some of the parts is really cheap, like any sales metric, EV to sales metric, forward free cash flow, it doesn't really matter. So some metrics, it's like 1 time sales, 0.5 times EV to sales, 8.5 times forward free cash flow, or about 5 times if you back out cash. Yeah, and they're also so as I said, like still growing really quick. So these multiples are definitely considered cheap, even compared to like other Chinese companies. And then yeah, the margin profile is somewhat masked. So even though it seems cheap, like an earnings or free cash flow basis, big parts of YY are still either under monetized or unmonetized. They have like Huya, I think only has like about like 5% net margins. BIGO as a group is like very negative in that margins. On the group level, the margins are still not really where they can be. Yeah, so I would also so that offers some optionality, right? So if one of those monetized apps works out and it can create a ton of shareholder value. Yeah, and also I would say that they are much better run than peers. So there are a few like data points I can point to prove that. So basically, they are like the one of the oldest live streaming platforms in China. They have like weathered a ton of storms, and they're also much better at monetizing live streaming users than its peers, and especially its overseas peers. For example, the ARPU of YY-live is like $400 a year, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, the same for like their game live streaming arm. They compete with a company called JOYY, so it's pretty easy to compare it to. And Huya has like way higher margins. I think like 18 percentage points higher. They also have like much higher ARPU. They adopted like a mobile focused strategy first. So that led to them having like more mobile MAU. Yeah, so they are clearly better run than their competitors, and also overseas they're yeah, so they scale like 4 massive apps overseas with relatively low spend. For example, Alibaba and Tencent have tried to compete with ByteDance in terms of short video apps in India. Basically, all failed with a much bigger budget. with JOYY or BIGO with Likey. Was the only one who was successfully able to compete, and they are now like the second biggest short video app outside China, like 100 million MAU or something. So to conclude, like it's a really cheap stock, it's growing quick, it's got a good future margin profile. They're extremely good at scaling apps and also monetizing live streaming users. JOYY's core business is live streaming, so it also has some apps in the short video and the chat and video call space, but it's still mostly a live streaming company. I'll start with the business model of live streaming. So it works similar to Twitch or Mixer, where basically there's a streamer, whether he's streaming himself playing video games or just himself doing something else for like an audience, and it's all live. So in YY's case, it's mostly non-gaming content. So YY Live and BIGO-live is like pretty much entirely non-gaming content. So the key thing to understand about live streaming is there is a deep connection between the viewer and the host. Most hosts just answer questions in the chat, they read the chat, they talk about everything that's going on now. Yeah, and they also do it like 6 hours in a row. So it's not just like a 10-minute video or Instagram post. It's like 6 hours in a row entertainment. And the way YY or other platforms monetize that is through virtual gifting. So virtual gifting accounts for like 95% of YY's revenue. It will probably continue to stay that way. Maybe decline in the future when short video for them starts popping off. But yeah, it accounts for the majority of YY's revenue. So you can, for example, gift or tip to highlight a message you are sending, or to show gratitude to the streamer, or to be perceived as rich and cool in the chat. So they also hold regular contests where you can basically pay to vote for your favorite host. So BIGO-live, for example, also has a pretty smart feature where streamers can battle each other, and you basically win if you get the most virtual gifts in a short amount of time. And all the users basically, all the fans want their favorite streamer to win, right? So they're incentivized to donate. Yeah, so obviously the question is like, why would you donate to a streamer who play you can watch for free? Like it makes no sense. So I would explain it in multiple ways. So first, tipping is part of our culture in the offline world. So we tip our cab driver, right? We tip our waitress. We tip the person cleaning our house, even though we don't really have to do it. But it's ingrained in our culture. I feel like people also get that online. So I feel like the willingness to tip online will continue to increase. Because, for example, on Likey, which is YY short video platform, you can basically tip a person's page. Like it's like the same as you would be able to tip a Twitter account or tip an Instagram account. Okay, so I already mentioned that YY Live's ARPU was like 400 a year, so the average revenue per paying user is about like $400 a year, which is obviously a lot. But this is mostly skewed towards like a really small percentage of the users, the so-called whales. So they basically give thousands of dollars each month and skew the ARPU numbers.
Researching for this year, I've stumbled on a video called "The People's Republic of Desire," which is a documentary about YY Live in China, and they paint this picture about these live streaming stars, which has these huge fan bases. And then there are these whales, as you talk about, that they're really donating a lot, and these whales might be lonely, rich people, and they get famous by paying a lot to these live streamers. The sponsors they get they get a star status as well, just because they're rich and because they're supporting this live streamer. And I, I, I tend to be a little bit more cynical about the generosity thing than you.
Yeah.
You're young and a really cool, nice guy, and perhaps I'm older and more 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 been hurt more by life or whatever. I don't know, but I think that this thing about generosity is so interesting. And then what you said about Likey, about that you can, when you tip somebody, you get ranked how much you've been tipping. So I think there is something in it for the generous in quotation sign people.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, so there's like a daily ranking, like a weekly ranking of the donators. So the more you donate, the higher you get on the ranking. So obviously you want to be first, right, in everything in life. So all these donators basically donate just to get like on the top of the rankings every day and every week. So yeah, as you say, like they are pretty much like benefiting from like loneliness, which is sad in a way.
Yeah, yeah, or just yeah, but also you can say that if you want to spend every dime you have on a Louis Vuitton purse to walk in the streets with it to show that you have money, then I think maybe this would be just as okay.
Better way.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's basically the same, right? It's just like the online equivalent of it. It's the
yeah.
way to be perceived rich online and be, yeah.
But also, if when superstars they donate for charity, it's all often made public, and
Mm.
I think, do you think maybe you could compare that to live streaming and to tipping? It's I guess it's not a cause that you would as a community say that it's a very good cause that this live streaming stars should win the competition. But when she has a fan base that really wants her to win, then for that fan base it becomes a good cause to donate.
And as yeah, as you basically say, like rich guys who donate publicly, like often want to be perceived as like really nice and sweet and thinking about like the world, you know. But they probably also mainly do it for themselves, right? To be perceived that way, like in a selfish way. And you can indeed like compare that to like a guy donating a ton to help like their favorite streamer win. They mostly do it out of selfish reasons. That's correct. Okay, so the split of like a virtual gift. So half of the money of the virtual gift, so the cost of the virtual gift goes to the platform. 40% goes to the streamer, and about 10% goes to the streamer's agency. So to say it again, half of each virtual gift goes to the platform. So that's obviously quite a lot. So this take rate has been quite stable over the past 6 years. It has come down a little bit from like 55% now, like half of each virtual gift, but it's still very high. I think you can pretty easily see how this business is like a very high margin business at steady state, right? If you take half of each virtual gift and you basically make almost no incremental cost on that, yeah, it just makes sense that once it scales, it becomes like a really profitable business. Um, so I've obviously like talked with like a ton of investors about YY and live streaming, and often there's the perception that the switching costs are extremely low for like a host. So a streamer could just switch from Twitch to Mixer or just from Huya to JOYY. Like, why not? But I disagree. So I think the switching costs are relatively high because like a host also like values interaction in the streams and the amount of fans that are watching. And if you switch platform, you basically lose like a big part of your audience because a big part of your fans just stay on the platform they already are. So good example is in the US, we are seeing a so-called streaming war, where basically the streaming platforms like Twitch, Mixer, Facebook are trying to like convince streamers to come to their platform, and they are paying like big sums of money for it. Like the biggest is called Ninja, and he recently switched from Twitch, where like streamed for like 10 years, to the Mixer, which is owned by Microsoft. But in this process, he lost, I think, like 70 or 80% of his viewers. So even though he got like more money out of it, he lost like almost 3/4 of his viewers, right? So he is probably not happy with that. So that makes the switching costs much higher than they appear to be.
Why is that, Alex? I was surprised too when Ninja announced that he was switching. Everybody thought that that would make Mixer a player, but eventually it panned out that nobody was following him.
Yeah, right. So how it works is that most Fortnite fans, so that's the game that Ninja plays, just like go on Twitch and just like click on like the most viewed Fortnite stream, right? So whether that's him or someone else, they don't care. Um, so like only like a small part, like 20% of his viewers watched him because of him, you know, and the other 80% just like watched him because he's like on top of Twitch, on the top Fortnite streams. And now that he left, there's like a new top streamer, obviously, in Fortnite called Tifu, and basically all the views that or all the fans that previously like watched Ninja now just watch Tifu, so they don't really care who is streaming, basically.
Why do you
Yeah.
think why is that? Is it habits or is there differences between the platforms?
Yeah, so I think it's like there are a few factors, right? So on Twitch, the depth of like the amount of streamers there are is like really good. So there's like a massive tail of like streamers. So if you want to watch like someone else, you can. And on Mixer, there's sometimes only like 100 streamers like streaming Fortnite compared to like thousands on Twitch, right?
Hmm.
So there's that, and also mostly you're like used to going on one platform. They don't really switch. Like for example, I watch Twitch, but I would never watch Mixer just because I'm like used to Twitch. I like Twitch. I have like all my favorite channels on Twitch. So like to switch, it has to be like a really special streamer, you know? Um, yeah, so most fans just stay on their platform is I guess the biggest takeaway.
Yeah. I guess for YY, they also have kind of the game, the competition between streamers. So, and perhaps that's an important thing as well, that they have these competitions, and if you take one streamer out of that, then there's not much competition left, not much
Yeah, right. Yeah, and also like
environment.
yeah, and also like if a streamer ends his stream, the fans basically go to like the next stream, right? So
Yeah.
like a platform basically they help each other, so that basically reinforces the network effects. And I would also say that especially like the smaller streamers, so tier two and below, they even have like bigger switching costs. Because like a massive streamer could basically switch and make it known to everyone, right? Like everyone knows that Ninja switched from Twitch to Mixer. But if like a tier two streamer would switch, like no one would know, right? So they would start like at the bottom at like the other streaming platform. Um, and also there is maybe good to say that YY uh, contracts or most tier one to three streamers are locked in by a contract, so they can't really just switch, you know. They are bound by a contract. Yeah, we're basically also seeing that in the West now, where in China, like almost all streamers are under contract. That's starting to happen in the US as well. Um, and also another thing is that YY and also Huya, they are really good at monetizing their users, as I explained before, like better than their peers. So even though like another platform might offer more money, they can't really offer the amount of virtual gifts that they would get because the ARPU on YY and Huya is just much higher. Um, so that's a pretty important factor for YY as well.
Do you have any? Why is that? With why is Huya better than is Huya better than JOYY, for instance,
Oh yeah,
at
for sure.
monetizing? Do you know why that is?
Yeah, so they basically have like I think like double the ARPU or something. So they're just much better at it. And yeah, so I think it comes from their history with YY. So YY has like the longest history in live streaming and monetizing it. So they basically like mastered the monetization of it. So they have like all kinds of like smart ways to monetize. And on the other hand, like Douyu is owned by Tencent, and I feel like Tencent is mostly focused on like user metrics, like user growth, user engagement growth, versus like margins, you know. So they would rather like maximize the number of MAU versus maximize ARPU.
I
So I
guess
feel
that
like
makes
comes from
sense
that.
since Tencent own the IPs of the games, so they don't need to monetize the live streaming. They just need to
To
put.
maximize view, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was also thinking that one of the things that could threaten the monetization is that if the sponsor would take the tipping offline and just give it in an envelope to the live streamer, but I was thinking that would not give the sponsor what they want, because then they would not get the publicity by paying.
Right. Yep.
So they need to
Exactly.
do it on the platform for everybody to see that they're big sponsors of this fantastic dancing woman.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So as I have said, about like 10% of the virtual gift goes to the agency. So you might wonder like, why is that? Like, why is such a big cut to like a management company? But it is because like agencies are really integrated into the Chinese live streaming business. So they are very integrated in the platforms. So what agencies do, they basically search for talent, and then they help them build an audience. So you can basically think of them as like a talent agency. So in a way, like YY outsources their search for talent to the agencies. Um, yeah, so what YY has a long and very strong relationship with the agencies, so that aligns interest. YY, for example, offers homepage spots to the agencies where they can basically like push their most talented streamers. So they help each other, right? So the platform helps the agencies, and the agencies help the platform. And what's also interesting is that YY is rolling the agency model out overseas. So on BIGO-live, they recently announced that they are like contract or partnering with a ton of talent searching agencies. So again, to like outsource their search for talent. Yeah, it's just a great business model, and it basically also helps. It will also increase the switching cost, because if you are part of an agency, it's tougher to switch from platform, right?
So about competition, Alex, is there any competition in China, and is there any competition in abroad?
Yeah, so there's a ton of competition in China and also overseas. The Chinese live streaming space has been competitive for a while. It's arguably a bit more competitive now versus like 2 years ago. Um, that's mainly driven by short video platforms doubling down on live streaming. So you have, for example, a massive Chinese short video platform called Kuaishou. I hope I pronounced it right. And they basically moved into live streaming because it's obviously the superior business model, and it's easier to monetize live streaming users. And they have pretty much like really cheap customer acquisition costs because they can just convert their short video users into live streaming users. So there's basically competition from there, and you also have the game live streaming companies like Huya and Douyu moving into non-game live streaming because the ARPU of like a non-game live stream is much higher. Um, so they basically do it to increase their TAM and to increase their ARPU. And then you also have like, yeah, there are many other live streaming companies out there which are competing with YY. So yeah, there's a ton.
Do you know anything about what their angle is to how are they trying to catch the market? Are they doing the same thing about whales and dancing girls, or are they having different approaches to trying to take market share from YY?
Wait, the short video platforms?
Yeah, and Huya and JOYY and Douyin, I guess is also moving in.
Yeah, so basically they all have the same approach in terms of monetization, but they basically like target different categories or they different focuses in terms of users. So as I said, is that the short video platform is basically obviously like most of their live streaming users are aware short video users. So they have like different demographics and different needs from like a hardcore live streaming user that's on YY Live. I would say they are like different in terms of focus of categories, um, and also they different in terms of focus on like um, yeah on like the type of users. For example, like Kwai Show is very focused on like the lower tier cities. Um,
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that one might be afraid of as an investor in YY is that they would be losing market share in the live streaming market, and I guess it's really hard to assess. But for me, at least, when I've seen that People's Republic of Desire movie, is that they have this yearly competition where both the live streamers and the donators are stars and are presented on a stage, and so they kind of have a brand about this yearly competition, and that's maybe that should give them some moats, because that's not something that you can just establish, even though you
I
have a lot of viewers and stuff.
Yeah, so they have like a pretty good track record of like um, yeah, of just like going through like very competitive environments. So they've been like the top live streaming company for like 10 years or something, even though the competition was like really tough over these 10 years. Uh, yeah, and also as you say, like the users are often like loyal to the platform, but perhaps like the incremental new live streaming user might go to another platform. So that's definitely like a risk.
Yeah.
But YY Live is still like growing like high single digits or something, and will probably continue to grow that way because they can just like ramp up ARPU. Um, and also, yeah, as I said, like they're just like extremely good at monetizing, you know. So that's basically what they have. That's their edge, I would say, uh, compared to their competition.
Yeah. So YY is generically a PC first platform, YY Live, I think.
Yeah, right.
Whereas the competitors, Kuaishou and Douyin and Huya, I guess are mobile first
Yeah,
platforms.
good point. Yeah, good point.
Do you know if that's something they are addressing, or?
Yeah, so I think YY Live like only reports their mobile MAU now, so we don't really know their total MAU. So I think they have like 40 million mobile MAU. So yeah, we don't really know how it compares, you know, compared to their desktop MAU. So I think they are making the switch because obviously they have to, but they were a bit slow indeed. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
were much quicker with Huya than YY Core. Yeah.
Do you know how is the MAU faring for YY Live?
40 million mobile MAU as of Q3. And that's basically like up like 1 million or something year on year. So it's not really growing its mobile MAU at all. It's just like really stable. So I would think of YY Lives like a stable cash flow machine. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty stable, not growing quick anymore, but it's just stable.
No. So definitely a risk when investing, that they might be losing market share in the years to come.
Yeah, so I think they are losing market share. but they're still like really steady, So
Yeah.
despite losing market share, despite like boosting the incremental user, they're still growing like high single digits. So I wouldn't worry like too much about it. I think YY will still be around in 10 years. It's just like a really strong and stable platform. YY Live's numbers. So their sales for this year is about 1.8 billion USD. They generate about 400 to 500 million dollars free cash flow every year. They run about 23% net margins the last 8 quarters, which probably understates their margins, but yeah, because they also include like an education effort in there and another overseas app in there. So the actual like YY Live platform margins are probably higher. Um, so they are expected to grow high single digits from here. So I guess to move on to Huya. So Huya is YY's game live streaming arm. So YY owns about 38% economic and 52% voting interest. Some numbers, so they have 1.2 billion revenue in 2019. It grew 80% year on year, so 80% year on year growth. The operating margin is about 3%, I think. As I said, it should trend towards the 20% operating margin or higher at maturity, since we have discussed the business model already. So operating margin of 3% might sound like pretty low, right? But if you compare to either their current peers or overseas peers, they're doing like much better. So their Chinese peers like Douyu or Bilibili, like they are very unprofitable, right? Like they have operating margins like minus 10%, maybe minus 20%, I don't know. At least Huya is profitable despite growing 80% and despite not being at like mature scale yet. So that's pretty key. So maybe it's nice to compare like some economics behind Huya versus Douyu. So Douyu is the main competitor in the space. They are perceived to have like a duopoly, but I don't really know if I agree with that. But that will be discussed later. So the take rate, that's basically how much is left after paying for the event rights, and after paying your streamers. For Huya is 30% versus Douyu 21%. The operating costs combined, so marketing, R&D, G&A together is like 15% of sales for Huya versus 17% for Douyu. So the ARPU, we already discussed that, so it's double for Huya, 60 a quarter, 60 USD a quarter versus 34 a quarter for Douyu. Also, Huya's ARPU is growing much quicker. And then last, so I've already mentioned as well, is that Huya adopted like a mobile first strategy before Douyu, and that's basically still paying dividends for them. They have 64 million mobile MAU versus just 52 for Douyu. So maybe to touch on the difference between like the game live streaming business and the non-game live streaming business. So maybe the first is that it has a much lower gross margins. That's basically because game live streaming platforms also have to pay a ton of money to acquire streaming rights for like an esports league or an esports event. So that leaves them with lower gross margins. And also the ARPU of like a non-game live streaming platform is higher because there you basically have these whales, as we have talked about, like these whales who basically pay like girls or donate a ton of money to girls dancing, and that's all considered non-game live streaming. So that basically explains why they are moving more and more into non-game live streaming. Um, so yeah,
Is there a
regarding
connection there with the just chatting category? Is that something like? Is it more like like non-gaming live streaming?
yeah, basically, but it also has like the categories that YY has, YY Live. So just like karaoke, dancing and stuff. So it's more than just chatting.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think you make like a good point there. Actually, that basically in the West is basically like following China in terms of live streaming. So on Twitch, they are moving more and more into non-game live streaming, and the same on like the other platforms, as they should. I think it's also the fastest growing category on Twitch, the just chatting. So yeah, it just makes a ton of sense. Yeah, maybe to touch on competition as well here. So as I said, Doyu is their main competitor. Um, so it is perceived as a duopoly, but I don't think that that's the case anymore. For example, Bilibili entered the space. They even acquired streaming rights for like a League of Legends final. Um, so there's more competition for streaming rights, and there's also more competition for game live streamers. Yeah, so as I said, also short video platforms like Kuaishou are doubling down on game live streaming. So I think Kuaishou's revenue from live streaming is like double Huya and Douyu combined. So Kuaishou is massive. Um, but yeah, they target different users, right? As we have discussed, like Kuaishou is a bit more casual. It's like the die-hard esports and game fans on Huya and Douyu. Um, mm, mm, mm.
Yeah, like you said, Kuaishou is probably more for the lower tier cities. I think some Chinese from the large cities look down on Kuaishou, on the people streaming on Kuaishou. People see it as rural and yeah, not so intellectual, not so hip stuff.
Yeah, correct. But I would say that they are like changing that a bit. I think they are like they improved that image a bit. And also, yeah, as I said, their sales is like twice Huya and Douyu combined, right? So
Yeah.
it's massive. Like, yeah, despite like not having, yeah, basically having the image of only targeting like the poor. Yeah, their sales say otherwise, basically.
So what about is commercials? Is that a thing for a game streaming company?
So you mean just like regular ads?
Yeah.
Yes, I would say it's only like a small part of revenue, so it's definitely there. I would also say like in between, like especially in esports stream. So if there's like an esports event or an esports league, then you often see like a commercial break. Like on like a regular stream, I would say there's almost no ads. Yeah.
Okay. So Huya now is with low margins because they need to buy streaming rights and they're growing. So where
Yep.
would you say when they reach kind of scale or just in 5 or 10 years, what would their business model look like? Where would the money come from?
Yeah, so I would say they should be able to reach like 20% operating margins at least at scale. I think we have seen that with like Momo, YY Live, BIGO-live. That's pretty much the case in live streaming. Maybe like slightly lower because it's like game live streaming. Um, but what Huya is basically trying to do as well, they are trying to expand their services. I'm no expert in this, but they also have like some cloud services, and they also are moving into publishing. So what it means is that basically a game maker goes to them, and then Huya pushes their game. You know, they do the marketing and whatnot, and it makes sense because like they basically have their massive platform to market games, right? So they can just push like a game they publish to their streamers. So perhaps that would be like a bigger part of the pie in the future. I'm not
So
really
simply
sure.
monetizing the traffic of
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It just makes sense. And maybe also, so they have like an overseas part. It's called Nemo TV. It has about, I think, like 20 million MAU or something. It has like a strong presence in South America and Southeast Asia. I think last month it surpassed. Twitch in Thailand, so it's like massive. It's quickly like gaining share in emerging markets.
Yeah, I think it's the same in Mexico, actually, in Latin America. That
They
it's
surpassed
surpassed
Twitch.
Twitch. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like doing, yeah, they're doing great. And um, I think like they have like a few advantages versus like the Western players because they are mostly competing with like Twitch, Mixer, Facebook and stuff. But I think they have like a few advantages, right? So first of all, like they are better at gamifying their platform. And what gamifying means is basically that you just like gamify your platform to increase engagement. So if you compare it to, for example, Twitch, like Twitch's platform looks pretty professional, right? You have like a chat and you have like a screen, and that's pretty much it. But on like Huya or Nemo TV, it's like there are like bullet chats flying through the screen. There are like virtual GIFs flying through the screen. You know, there's like a ton of stuff going on. And for some reason that appeals like the EM countries. Um,
Yeah, or
more,
maybe
yeah,
that just appeals to mobile first
mobile, yeah,
generations.
right, yeah,
The Asians and the young people here, they use their phones like that, and yeah, it's just so much
yeah.
like Shopee actually. If you compare the e-commerce platform of Southeast Asia
Hmm.
with other e-commerce platforms, everything is gamified. So
Right.
you can get a better offer if you can find some friends that will shake their phone for a minute. Then they'll take a random number of the offer that you're using or that you're trying to buy,
Right.
and so that's like you say, it just drags engagement into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so mobile first is key and gamifying your platform is key. Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. So it's a YY spirit coming through Huya to
Mhm.
Nemo TV.
Yeah, and I would also say that they have like a so-called like localized strategy. So they basically like localize their product, they localize the content, they localize all the stuff that's going on. So instead of like pushing, like for example, Twitch again, right? They have the same platform in every country and like the same gifts in every country. They're just like one platform. And Nemo basically like yeah adopts like their platform to each region. So yeah, it just helps them get an edge there.
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
So Tencent owns a big chunk of both Douyu and Huya, as we discussed. So about 2 years ago, Tencent approached YY and pretty much like demanded a controlling stake. They were like, yeah, if you don't give us Huya, then we will just like double fund your main competitor and just crush you. So they were basically forced to sell to Tencent. Basically, Tencent then obtained an option that would give them the option to get a controlling stake in 2 years. That option expired yesterday, or I mean, is exercisable from yesterday. So if Tencent exercises it, they basically get a controlling stake of Huya, and that means that YY has to deconsolidate Huya. Um, so that will have some impact on YY. It basically like gives YY a few options though. So YY can do like three things, right? After it deconsolidates Huya. So they could either keep the stake. So I think it's like about like 36% economic interest or something. They can sell to Tencent and then slowly sell their remaining stake. And last, they can spin it off completely. So for example, Yahoo had like a stake in Alibaba, and I think they spun it off like completely. Um, So the second option where YY might like sell Huya slowly makes the most sense to me. I think that's what will happen because YY also decreased their Huya stake. They sold some shares, I think like last year. I think they sold like 100 or 200 million in shares. Um, last year. So I think that would make sense. And then they could either use that money to fund a BIGO or to buy back shares. And I hope, obviously, the latter. Um, yeah, and also maybe regarding Huya, so YY's founder, David Lee, appeared in a podcast from GDV Capital. It's a pretty good one. It's like a podcast on like emerging countries and tech companies in those emerging countries, mainly China. And I'm paraphrasing here, but basically David Lee said he expects Tencent to merge Huya and JOYY. So that would make a ton of sense to me, especially if they gain control, right? Like it will lead to higher take rates, higher margins, more firepower overseas. Huya is much better managed, so they can manage use business as well. It just would make a ton of sense, in my opinion. So we might see that happening in the next 1 or 2 years.
Okay, Alex. So it sounds like you actually think that YY is going to sell the Huya shares or Huya part. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think there are like two ways to think about it. So these like 2 points I would make. So the first one is that YY already started selling shares last year, so that probably indicates that they don't want to keep the shares, right? And then second, I would say that yeah, we have seen the share price. So why, right? Like it clearly does not reflect Huya's or the stake in Huya. And I would say like after they deconsolidate Huya, um, yeah, the share price will probably not reflect the economic stake they have. I would say considering those two that they probably sell it, right? It makes sense to me.
Yeah, makes sense.
It obviously depends on the share price, right? Like Huya's share price right now is relatively low or considered cheap, at least I would say so. So they might like sell it slowly now and maybe ramp up once the stock price goes up. Okay, so YY's overseas arm. So I will start with Hago because that Hago is part of YY. So YY developed the app and not a BIGO. So I will just start with that and then move on to BIGO. So Hago is basically like I can't play it myself, unfortunately. So if I have watched like a ton of videos and but not understand the app, but yeah. So Hago, the way I understood it, is a social platform where you can play games. So basically, it's just an app where you have like 100 games and you can play it with friends, against friends, and with strangers. It are like really simple games, right? They are not complicated, just like short, small games. And what they are doing is like constantly they are adding new features, such as chats, voice chats, and whatnot. They monetize through in-game items and through virtual gifts, as always. And then the core markets are Southeast Asia, so Indonesia, Vietnam, and also India, Brazil, Thailand, Saudi Arabia. The average daily time spent is almost an hour, so that's quite a lot. As of Q3, they had 32 million MAU, which is up 90% year on year. And Hago should be profitable in core countries in Q4. That's at least their guidance. So yeah, I've been tracking the App Store rankings from Hago. As we have discussed at the start, right, that gaming and apps in general are perceived to be like pretty like volatile. But Hago is like extremely stable in terms of grossing rankings. So for example, in Indonesia, they are like the fourth top grossing app of Indonesia for like I feel like 10 months in a row or something. Um, so every time on the fourth, sometimes fifth, but just like extremely stable. So it is not just like an app that's doing good in like for like 1 or 2 months. It's like has been doing pretty solid and stable for like 12 months. So then we have a BIGO group. So as I said, YY already owned a piece before they acquired it. Um, they acquired it last year at like a 2.1 billion valuation. They had 800 million in sales in 2019, they are expected to grow 60% in 2020. So 60% growth this year expected. So they would get into like 1.3 billion in revenue, if my math is correct. As a group, they're still very unprofitable. Marketing as a percent of sales is 40%, so that's a lot. They mostly spend that money on Likey, which is their short video platform. But I guess it's the best to again like distinguish the different apps of BIGO because like the live streaming segment is very profitable, but the other apps are not. So I would say separate those. So I would say yeah. So we'll start with BIGO-live, which is a live streaming app. So I would say it's like YY's crown jewel. It's like one of the best apps in my opinion from them. So they already surpassed 20% operating margins. They account for most of BIGO's revenues. Um, they will generate, I feel like 200 million in operating income next year. So it's already very profitable and quite big. And it's still growing quite fast as well. We don't know how fast because they aren't like splitting it out per app. It's probably like north of 40% this year. So it's maybe interesting to compare like the Chinese with the Western live streaming space. So in China, like 7 out of the top 10 Chinese platforms are focused on entertainment, so non-game live streaming. While in the West, they are basically all game focused, so the Twitches, Mixer, and stuff. So this is basically the opportunity for BIGO-live, right? So they are a non-game live streaming platform. They're basically a way to play like the penetration of non-game live streaming in the West, um, basically outside China. Yeah, so it's a live streaming app. It's mostly like girls dancing, twerking, singing, and talk to an audience. So to be clear, it's not porn. There's no nudity there and stuff. So you could maybe say it's like soft porn, but yeah. So it uses the same gamification as we have discussed before. Uh, yeah, it pretty much like tries or uses every trick in the book to maximize user spend. I mean, I can give a few examples. So the streamers all have like a level, and basically that incentivizes them to encourage their fans to help them reach the next level by gifting, but also by engagement. So like asking questions, commenting, and whatnot, and following. Fans can also donate to spin a wheel. So the wheel is designed by the host. So on some wheels, it could say like do squats or give a kiss or sing or twerk or whatever. So if a fan donates a certain type, then they can basically spin the wheel and then the streamer will perform that. This is obviously like a good way to monetize because it feels like the streamer is doing that dance just for you, you know. It also has a PK mode. I discussed before. It's basically where streamers battle each other, right? And the winner is the one who receives the most gifts. That obviously like incentivizes fans to help their favorite streamer to win. And they also hold contests, just like YY Live. So you
Have you
can
been on
basically,
it?
yeah.
Have you seen it? Have you
Oh,
tried?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, like
Yeah.
try it every week to just see like how the engagement is, like how many viewers and how many streams there are. But there are like, yeah, like a ton of streamers. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Okay.
Pretty big.
Cool.
Um,
I saw that in Singapore there was an event,
hmm,
something like
like the
like
YY
the
event.
YY thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so they're basically doing the same stuff as in YY or as in China because they know that works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, like these events, they do the same. The way to monetize, they do the same. The gamifying pretty much works the same, and yeah, it also, yeah, so it's very popular. They also sign most of the top streamers. And they also work with talent agencies, as we have discussed before. So it's just basically a China model, but then outside China. Yeah, so they're by far like the biggest non-game live streaming app. So their main competitor was called LiveMe, but it got banned last month because its parent, I think Cheetah Gaming or Cheetah Mobile or something, and they were accused of ad fraud and whatnot. So all their apps got banned. So that will obviously benefit BIGO-live. So yeah, it's a really fast-growing industry. So the non-game live streaming penetration is still very low outside Korea and China, and it should like grow like a ton the next few years. As we've also discussed that on Twitch, like the fastest growing category is the non-game live streaming segment, the just chatting category. So we are already see that trend play out, right?
Okay.
So BIGO-live benefits from that.
How is BIGO-live growing?
In terms of what? In terms of sales or?
Yeah, and MAU.
Yeah, so the sales is tough because they don't really split it out, so we know like the BIGO as like a group. I think it grew like 100% this year. It's expected to grow 60%, and BIGO-live accounts for the majority of that. We can probably assume it grows like north of 40%. But yeah, that's just a guess. And in terms of MAU, I think they're like at 22 million MAU now. It's not growing that quick in terms of MAU. It's the ones that are on the platform are like really valuable. So it's not like you can compare like 20 million BIGO-live MAU with 20 million Facebook MAU or 20 million Twitch MAU. Like these are like high quality live streaming MAUs. And again, with like high ARPU, again like skewed towards whales, basically like the same stuff.
What are the competitors outside of China for BIGO-live?
Yeah, so there are a few. So yeah, as I discussed, like LiveMe was their main competitor in the West, but they got banned. We also have a group that's called Meet Me. It's, I think like ticker Meet, MEET. It got acquired, I think. But it's a pretty sketchy company. I would say like they are basically a dating app. We have like a group of dating apps, um, which have like a live streaming feature in it. So you can probably best compare it to how Momo works. So it's basically the main function is dating and meeting strangers. Then they do it by also adding live streaming. So I would say that it's different from BIGO-live, where live streaming is actually like the main business. Um, so they have, yeah, there are obviously like some more live streaming apps, but I would say the BIGO-live is like much bigger than all of them. In the future, we will probably see that Mixer, Twitch and stuff will move more into non-game live streaming and perhaps like contracting those streamers. But as you made a great point that those platforms probably don't want to be associated with like girls twerking and stuff. So yeah, we'll probably like stay. Yeah, so they will probably like stay away from that for the most part.
Okay, so not really much competition.
So BIGO's second platform is called Likey. So it's JOYY's short video platform. Um, yeah, so they were one of the few that were able to compete with TikTok in India and other EM countries. So they currently have, I think, like 100 million MAU. It's up 400%. So it's growing insanely quick year on year. So 100 billion MAU. So it basically works similar to TikTok, right? So it's just like really short videos of like 5 to 10 seconds, like music behind it. Um, its target users are mostly like really young kids. Like I would say between like 5 and I don't know like 16 or 18. It's very popular in Southeast Asia, so in India, also in Russia and in Latin America. So the app is very profitable, as I said. So their revenue story is still like really small. So they burning a ton of cash each quarter. for probably around like 200 billion a quarter in cash burn. So what they are basically trying to do in terms of monetizations, they are trying to introduce like new features to the app, because they don't wanna monetize through ads. I don't know why, but they probably think that it will hurt the user experience, and they just want to like maximize MAU right now. So they are trying to monetize through adding live streaming, as always. So they basically added live streaming to it, and so I've tried the app a ton of times. It seems to have like seems to be doing well, the live streaming feature, but I'm not sure whether the target user base is like made for it, because like the young kids are not willing to like donate that much, right, to a streamer. They are different from like the whales as we've talked about. Um, but like it also does basically the same like gamifying methods, and they also have, as we talked about, that they have the ranking where like a person who donates the most get like on top of the ranking, which helps. You can also donate to a person's page, so it's the same as like in Instagram, like an Instagram model. You could donate to a page, right? That's basically how it works. Likey. Um, yeah. So I'm not really sure about Likey's long-term margins, but I know that it has some strategic value, right? Because short video platforms are really hot right now, and 100 million MAU is having that many MAU, which is really valuable. There are also some synergies between Likey and the other BIGO products, right? As we have seen in China, where short video platforms basically convert the users into better unit economics features. So Likey is trying to do the same, and they can also basically channel the Likey MAU to like BIGO or Hago. Yeah, I've also like this is a low probability chance that it might get acquired, because YY's expertise is in live streaming. They are generally like not really. I mean, they are really good at scaling apps, also outside live streaming, but they are not that good at like monetizing through ads or something. So it might be of like bigger strategic value to another player like Kuaishou in China, who has like not that big of a presence outside China. Um, so it might be like an interesting acquisition for them. But yeah, that's obviously like a low probability event.
Yeah. So about I think one of the things that people have always been talking about in gaming is that if the games industry is not allowed to use loot boxes anymore, the gaming industry would not earn any money anymore, and that's I think that's really stupid.
Yeah,
And Strauss Zelnick from Take-Two, he always says at the earnings calls when he get this question, he always says, whenever we get engagement, we're going to monetize it somehow.
right,
So
right,
we
right.
just focus on getting engagement, and then monetization will come. And if loot boxes is prohibited, then there will be a switching period where we might have some earn less money. But
Mm.
people want to use our products, consume our products, so they are going to be willing to somehow pay for it. And I think that's the way I think about live streaming, no, about short video, is
Mm.
that people are watching it, enjoying it, consuming it. So eventually the monetization will come one way or another. And if it's
Right.
going to be the Kuaishou model where they use it for e-commerce, or it's going to be the TikTok where they use ads, or it's going to be the tipping model for that Likey has.
Mm.
I really don't think that we as investors should be so concerned about that,
Right.
because we'll just not see the potential of it, of all these eyeball hours, all the traffic. You talked about it about Huya, that they are going to monetize the traffic by
Publishing games.
publishing, yeah, and TikTok is doing that as well.
Mm.
So I think we should not worry so much about that. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, exactly. So everything from like increasing MAU or increasing time spent, they're doing like a fantastic job. So on that front, they're like crushing it, I would say.
Yeah, and also if you compare to ByteDance and how much money they're spending
Right.
on their acquiring users, and why this small company, they still have positive numbers, and they are scaling Likey really well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like YY is extremely good at like scaling in a cost efficient way, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah,
great point.
yeah. And as a Chinese company, I think that it's positive that they're not in the US. I'm very skeptical that ByteDance is going to be allowed to have user data.
Mm,
I think for a Chinese company to be allowed to have user data, that's going to be controversial, because the management never has an ability to say no to the Chinese government whenever the Chinese government wants to have insights in something.
right.
And ByteDance is trying to move TikTok outside of China to, I think it's Singapore. They're going to have the company there, but I don't know. Still doubt that it's going to mean that the Chinese authorities are not going to have access to anything. So I just like that YY is focusing on outside the West, I would say.
Yeah, so I would say for Likey it's the case, but I would say for BIGO-live, like they are really big in like Belgium, Italy, US, Germany and stuff as well. But I think also, yeah, as you said, that Binance is moving towards like being headquartered in Singapore, right, for like the overseas business. But that's basically how YY is set up. So BIGO is headquartered in Singapore. Um, that probably helps because often like an article when they are like mentioned, they often still refer to like BIGO as like a Singaporean company instead of it being like a Chinese company. So I guess that helps quite a bit. Yeah. So this kind
Yes,
of under
yeah,
the
it helps
radar
some.
still, like the Chinese
But
part.
I also think that when the Likey and TikTok business model is highly dependent on user data
Yeah, for sure.
for AI and machine learning to present the right stuff for the consumer,
Right.
whereas live streaming doesn't really need to have that much consumer data to be working well,
Um, yes, I would say it's
or what?
both. I would
Yeah.
say it's both because, like, if they know that you are like a fan of person X and he or she compares to person Y, they will probably also recommend person Y after person X stops streaming, right? So I think AI and having the data is also really important in live streaming, as you can just like, yeah, basically increase the time spent after their favorite streamer goes offline. Huh?
So I think was it I think that many of the big companies has actually tried to make a short video application. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so Tencent and Alibaba tried to do it in EM countries, right? They tried many times with a massive budget, but it failed. Then in the US, Facebook even tried it. They came out with like an app called Lesso, but yeah, it was just a fail. Um, yeah, I think those companies will continue to try, but yeah, it's just really tough to compete with ByteDance.
Yeah, and with Likey, I guess.
And we like it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
both.
yeah. So we're back with that no matter how much money you have behind something, if you don't have the secret sauce or know how to execute it well, it's not going to keep the users coming back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like short video is really tough. Yeah, you need data, right? You need skill, as you say. So,
Yeah, and they've kind of gotten into a worldwide duopoly now. with ByteDance.
Yeah, so I still see it as like a monopoly, to be honest. It's like ByteDance is just that much bigger. I think it has like, well, like 7 times the MAU, probably even more. So I would say like it is a monopoly, but yeah, they're definitely like a good distant, a good second player, you know, like decent size.
Do you know, is there any markets where Likey is dominating?
Um, yeah, so I think there are like a few. I think in the Middle East, and in India, but I'm not 100% sure. Like I don't have the data in front of me. I think they are like they have been like on top of the download rankings for quite a while in like many like Asian and Middle Eastern countries. Um,
Yeah, and I think when you look at the Sensor Tower rankings, then you usually have Likey on most downloaded entertainment apps, and you usually have TikTok at the top, and then you have Likey somewhere down,
yeah,
fourth,
exactly.
fifth place, or something like that.
Yeah. So I feel like, for example, in Pakistan they might be bigger, and in India perhaps, but yeah, TikTok is definitely like the distant number one. Okay, so then BIGO's last massive app is called Emo. It's basically an app that, in my understanding, compares to Skype a bit, but it has introduced like many more features. It basically starts as like a chat and call and video call type platform. Yeah, it's massive, so there's like 210 million MAU, so 210 billion. They facilitate 400 million calls every single day. The average daily time spent is almost 40 minutes, so they are massive. So again, they are really strong in like BIGO's core countries. So that's the Middle East, that's Asia. So that includes like countries like India, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, stuff like that. So they are not really monetized yet. Um, they monetize a bit through ads, but it hasn't really like reached a significant scale yet. So their goal is currently to again maximize MAU and to maximize user engagement and time spent. So also they are like trying to create a super app here. So basically like WeChat. So instead of sticking to like a chat and video call service, um, they are expanding the app every time. So for example, they added short videos, they added live streaming. I think they also added a few like mini games. I'm not sure if they rolled it out yet, but otherwise they will. Um, so you can basically like see the different approach that YY or a Chinese company takes and like a Western player takes, right? So for example, WhatsApp has been the same like 10 years. They are not like trying to introduce like crazy features. Um, well, YY does. So email, yeah. So the goal is to convert these 200 million MAU into paying users on any way possible, right? So whether it's through ads in the future or to live streaming or to short video, they're just trying like everything possible to become like a super app. So for now, I think they're burning cash, um, but it does offer some optionality for YY if the app works out, right? Like if they're able to convert these MAU into paying users or um, increase basically their ad load, then it could create like a ton of shareholder value.
Yeah, wow. So I'm just thinking here. Facebook is like 2.5 billion
Hmm.
users reach, and YY has a 200-300 million users if you add the apps together.
Yeah, I think even more. I think they have like I feel like 500 million mobile MAU. YY as a group. It's yeah, if you even include like Huya, it's almost 700 million. So the reach is quite big.
Yeah, that sounds like it's one of the big companies in the world in if you measure it in consumer reach.
Yeah, I would
I
say so.
I know it's not very valuable consumers because it's in developing countries,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so
but
most
it's
of most of those MAU are like in emo and likey, right?
yeah.
Which are less interesting than as we talked about like a high valuable live streaming MAU. And also most of their MAU from likey and emo are indeed in like India and stuff. So you see relatively poor countries. So yeah, you can't really compare the MAU, but yeah, it makes sense. Like their reach is insane. Like it's massive.
Yeah, and that just gives them a potential to really to really reach a lot of users. People are talking about Facebook becoming this having a chance to becoming this e-commerce machine
Mm.
through their WhatsApp and Instagram users.
Mm.
So you kind of get the association that YY is trying to sort of build the same reach, just coming in under the radar.
Yeah, so I don't know if they are like ever gonna move into e-commerce. I think they invest in like an e-commerce startup the past few months. Perhaps you know more about that than I do.
I'll,
Um,
yeah, I'll find it. I know the article. That's true. An e-commerce enabler.
e-commerce
Um,
enable.
yeah. So actually, a company that would make you able to open an e-commerce shop on IMO or Likey or
Mm,
something if you wanted to sell stuff from those platforms.
that's interesting. That's for
Yeah,
sure interesting.
it's kind of like what Facebook is doing with Instagram. They're making the Instagram checkout. So you have a company providing everything beneath the payment structure and the logistics infrastructure, and then you just then the seller only chooses the products and have them on their inventory, and then the e-commerce enabler will do all the rest, all the transaction behind it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so at least them buying a company like that must mean or
They
investing
have
in a company.
intention. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it would make sense because like all the top influence on like Likey, they all have their own shopping line, you know. So if they could like just sell those sweaters, t-shirts through Likey instead of having to go through like a different site, that would be great. Yeah,
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, and that's kind of the business model for Shopee, the e-commerce marketplace in Southeast Asia.
Mm.
I made a video about it, but it's when they started up, they just started a marketplace, and they invited people who were selling through Instagram, for instance, to come to Shopee. So so somebody who is selling through Instagram would have to, the customer would have to make contact over Instagram, and you'd have to take the chat to WhatsApp or something, and then you'll have to make the payment through something else, and you need a lot of trust and all that.
Mm.
But then Shopee integrated everything, so you could have
That's smart.
the exposure there and the payment and the logistics.
Mm.
And well, if you just think of the wet fantasy of YY, then having 500 million MAU and then converting all that into a shopping mall on the internet, that's quite interesting. Okay, so just thinking about it, then if you look at worldwide reach about companies that has that, then we have Facebook that has perhaps 2.5 billion MAU, and then we have YouTube, and I think is that I can't remember the number, 1 or 2 billion MAU,
Mm.
and then we have ByteDance, which is somewhat smaller. And then perhaps actually we have JOYY coming in there in reach. I think that's quite interesting from a potential perspective of what this business can become eventually. But I guess you talked about another app that's upcoming from BIGO. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's called Hello Yo. Yeah, it's not growing that quick anymore. But it's basically like JOYY Live is like a really stable business. So it's different though in like what it does. So it's a voice chat room app where you can basically like meet, chat, talk, and sing with either your friends or strangers. And what they are trying to do here is basically the same thing, right? So they started as like a voice chat room business, and then they're adding features. So they added games, I think, like last few months. Um, and they are just basically like trying to build it out and just like monetizing their voice chat room MAU. So what's interesting is that they've been like quite high on the top grossing rankings. So they're, for example, like 24th on top grossing in Saudi Arabia. I think like 140 in China, 155 in Indonesia, almost 70 in Pakistan. So they are doing quite well in terms of top grossing. But it's a relatively small app, but they're basically trying to do the same thing. So they're trying to build out their base and then trying to convert these users into paying users. So perhaps what you can also see here is that the BIGO model is basically to add features to every app, right? So they added chat and voice chat services to Hago, sorry. They added games to Hello Yo. They added live streaming to Likely, and then they also added short video to Emo. So you can basically see that they're just trying to expand like every app with the features that they are good at, right? So that's short video, live streaming, and the chat and voice apps.
Yeah, so it
So
will
that's pretty interesting,
become one place you can go to eventually. You
right?
have to,
Yeah, that's
to
probably their master plan to like either make like one big super app or just make like a few apps with like few quote unquote super apps. Okay, so a quick sum of the parts. So they have 2.3 billion in cash. So YY Live generates well like 4 to 500 million annual free cash flow. So I would say like if like a 8 or 10 multiple gets you like 4 billion. Then they have a Huya stake, which is worth 1.7 billion at current market valuation. And then last they acquired Bigger Group at like a 10.1 billion valuation. So you can either take debt value or you can take like a multiple of sales. And you have to keep in mind that all of their sales come from outside China, right? So they deserve a higher multiple. So I would compare with like comparable companies like Snapchat or something. Snapchat trades like 8 times sales, forward sales. If you apply like a really conservative 2 times, then you also get like 2.6 billion for Bigo. And then last, they have like a 50 million equity stake in ticker COE. It's only a small stake, but if you combine all these numbers I just discussed, you probably get like 3 times the current market cap.
Yeah, I'm just writing down. But also, if I told you that you could buy a stake in a company that's online and that doesn't have very many competitors, and that's growing, what's what's BIGO-live growing?
Yeah,
Uh,
probably like 40% or higher, but we don't
yeah,
really know, but probably.
yeah. So what kind of valuation would you put on that?
Really got Yeah, so it's built like generate like 200 million in operating income next year. I mean this year, sorry. So I would easily put like a 20 multiple on that if I were to just buy BIGO-live, right? This is just such a good business to me.
Yeah, yeah. And I always like to compare with ByteDance, that their valuation is somewhere around $100 billion now. I think
Right.
last time they took in money it was $75 billion, and and people are talking that it's going to be higher. And if we say they have 1 billion users, then that's around $100 per user.
Right.
And we say that YY has 500 million users, and so their user is $4 worth each. Yeah,
It's a big difference.
yeah.
Also, Binance, I think, would like to implied sales multiple is like 4 times or something, right? I think they did like 25 billion in sales, or are expected to. So that's like a 4 times multiple or something. That's like 8 times more than YY Core, right? I mean YY Group. And also, if you would apply like that multiple to BIGO, you already get like much higher than the current market cap of YY.
Yeah. So I just added the numbers together. You said 2.3 million in cash, and then you said the Huya stake is 1.7 million. Have you corrected that some of the cash is in Huya?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then YY Live, you said 4 billion, and BIGO, you said 2.6 billion.
Yeah, something
And
like
that
that.
makes 10.6 billion. So
About
that
2.5 times current.
2.5 times current. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's one way to look at it. And if you compare the price per user with ByteDance, you get a way higher figure. And if you put a price on BIGO-live, just not thinking it's Chinese, you get a way higher bigger figure.
Yeah, to be honest, I think like the current market cap is already like covered by BIGO-live. I would pay a pretty high multiple for that.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, but the story is here that I've really been trying to make you come with a high number because you're really cautious, and I think that's really important to be that. So there's a lot of things that you need to consider and be careful about here.
Right. Yeah, so I would be like much more conservative in terms of like some of the parts. So if we start with that billion in cash, right, or the 2.3 billion in cash, like I think you should apply like a decent discount on any like RMB cash because it's basically like stuck inside China. So yeah, I would either discount about like 30% or maybe even more. Yeah, and then YY Live, I think like investment banks put like a 5 times multiple on it. That seems too low to me, but yeah, if you really want to be like conservative, you put like five times that annual free cash flow. And
Do
they
you know
would get you like 2
why they
billion.
do that?
I think they just like try to match the current market cap, you know.
Okay.
Because obviously, if they're gonna say like it's worth 10 times, then they get like a price target like two times the current stock price. They can really do that, right? So
Yeah. Makes
because
sense.
I think if you like go back like 2 years when the stock was trading at like 120 or something, they will probably have put like a much higher multiple on YY Live. So that is adjusted accordingly to the market.
That's why it's so interesting to make a sub without thinking about the share price and then see what could the valuation actually be.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so like in my conservative approach, I would at least see a double here. If you discount the cash, if you discount Huya stake, you take like a conservative multiple on YY Live. Then if you could take BIGO at like the acquisition value, then you still get like a double from here. So
Yeah. What are the risks in some of the other so YY Live? We talked a little bit about that. Huya, what are the risks there? Do you think?
um, yeah, so I guess the main risk is competition, right? As we have discussed. I think their position is pretty strong, so I would say it's not that big of a factor overall, especially considering like the current valuation. It's also pretty cheap, like a forward sales basis, considering the growth rate.
What about the Tencent thing? Are they a risk?
Right, so they are a risk at like the earnings power of Huya. So as we discussed, like Tencent often like prefers um, time spent, MAU, engagement over like margins. So in theory, like Tencent taking over could lead to like lower margins. Yeah, that's for sure a risk.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, and BIGO, what are the risks there?
Yeah, so I guess like the main risk to BIGO-live is like some regulatory entity coming in and regulating the ways they monetize. So for example, the spinning wheel, they might regulate that. There's also a possibility, obviously it's a small probability that, for example, Google or Apple bans the app, because it is sometimes on the edge of like soft porn.
Yeah,
But I think they're really strict in like banning. They're like extremely quick in it. Like I've experienced it myself. They are really quick at like banning channels. So I don't think the risk is that high. And then the risk for Likey and Emo is basically that they continue to burn cash. So they are burning a ton of cash now. So that might stay the same in the future. If they can't figure out how to convert the MAUs. So I guess like the main risk is, yeah, it's a Chinese company, right? So I guess that's the biggest risk. So there's sometimes like a lack of transparency. They don't really, the investor relationship is not really good. Like they do a poor job, in my opinion, explaining the story. Um, Also, there's obviously always a question about like, can we trust the numbers, right? I would say that's like less of a concern for live streaming companies because you can basically just track the virtual gifts on a platform, so you can basically just track it. Um, and also the VIE structure, so the way the company is structured, is obviously a risk. Then I guess last, yeah, the regulatory risk in China is obviously a risk for streaming companies. So um, I think last month they banned a feature called interactive gifting or something. So what that means is that instead of being able to give like 10 RMB, which is like $1.50, you could gamble that 10 RMB and have the opportunity or the probability to be able to give like 1,000 RMB gift, right? Which is obviously like much cooler to give. But because it's considered like gambling, it's now banned. So stuff like that's obviously a risk.
Alex, some upcoming catalysts. What do you see that could increase interest for the stock or yeah?
It's a good question. Yes, I would say there are a few. The first might be the ByteDance or Kuaishou IPO. So perhaps that like increased the demand for short video companies. Um, then the second one is the Huya decision. So probably soon Tencent will exercise the option, right, to acquire a controlling stake in Huya. So YY has to make a decision at the point of what they're gonna do with it. So perhaps that's a trigger. Then I guess, yeah, they will just continue to spit out cash. They will continue to grow their overseas business, and the bigger the overseas business gets, as like a total percentage of the pie, it should lead to a higher multiple in theory. And also, I guess bigger group being break even might be a trigger. I think they guided it. I think they guided Bigo to be break even at the end of this year. Yeah, we'll see if that happens. And then last, maybe it might be seen as a way to play the coronavirus, because
Yeah.
like there's a good relationship between time spent on a live streaming platform and the amount they gift. So.
Beginning, you said you like companies where margin profiles are some way masked. And it sounds to me like this is like JOYY is one of those cases. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. So like the earnings power or the margin profile of the core business and also of the BIGO-live business is massively like masked because of Huya and because of the unprofitable Likey and Emo. So I think like current group platform operating margins are around like 2%. I think like in Q3, so that's extremely low, right? Compared to like over 20% like in 2017 and stuff. So the margin profile over the next few years will like change drastically. So it will like trend towards like that 20% net margin profile, where it was like in 2017, 2018. And a trigger will be like BIGO being break even. So now BIGO basically compensates for all the profits that BIGO-live is generating. So when BIGO as like a group breaks even, it will be like very positive for the margin of the company.
Fantastic hearing about JOYY, and it's been so enjoyable working together with you, Alex, on this video. Thanks so much for all the insights. So once again, Alex, where can people find you?
Yeah, so my Twitter is Badback, which you spell BADBAK. Yeah, so everyone, please just tweet me to discuss the stock. I'll happily ask or answer any questions.
So yeah, thanks again, Alex.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was fun.
So that was it from the gaming and esport investor for this time with Alex Haak about JOYY. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do press like. Please do subscribe to my channel. That helps me become more visible on YouTube. I intend and hope to make more of these kind of videos, thematic videos about a branch or a theme or some single stocks. So if you would like to participate in that and tell about the specific stock that you know a lot about, or if you know somebody, please do contact me. It's a really fun and enjoyable process, and you get to learn the stock a lot better that you're working with in this way. Yeah, and then do remember that this was not to be seen as investment advice. It was for informational purposes only. So do your own due diligence, and good luck with your investments.